We're recording. We're
We
live.
are.
Live from
No,
New
I have.
York. It's Saturday night.
That is so staying in there. So I have my hoodie on.
I'm wearing a blazer, which I feel is.
Do you have pearls, or is there tea involved? Aren't you a tea person?
I am. I'm a hot beverage person. So tea. I'm also. Oh, that's beautiful.
So this is isn't this wicked?
Yeah.
We went on a trip to Gettysburg. I like Vanna. It's coffee. It's coffee.
It's coffee.
You're red. I'm blue.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What are the Smithy colors?
Blue and gold, which it's fine, but like.
Do you know how Mount Holyoke obsessed I am? I will show you.
Please do.
My vitamin pill set, my 7-day. I took one of those stickers for a car, and I put it because I thought the white thing was really boring. When I stayed at Willits Hallowell, which is the hotel on campus, I kept my little pad that they have because swag. And
swag is important.
And also, I don't know if you can really tell, but this is a lanyard on my little keys. Do you know what's so epic about my keys? I literally have a key, no, 2 keys on it. I have one house key, and I have a key to my old house, and we have parking right in front of our house, and since I retired, we returned the second car, so I don't have car keys. But yeah, I got problems.
You got some swag there. Yeah, I
Oh look, no, this is like related to my first book. It's The Tree of Life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Which is a Easter egg in all my Charlie Dempsey paranormals. Look at you, you have like a board behind you. That means you look so official. Like I'm sitting on my bed.
Well, okay, I had to teach over Zoom. So I've gotten somewhat.
Because I've seen your in the wilderness photographs, and I'm like, you look really put together. What's wrong?
Oh, it's a lie. Well, do you want to feel better?
No, I want to admire you.
Okay, so you don't want to know what I'm wearing underneath? If
you want to show us.
It's my most stellar outfit. I don't know if you can see.
Those are some sexy shoes. Are they
my Hello Bean slippers. My sweatpants have constellations on them. They are a Target special.
You are so fucking stylish. Okay.
I am.
So to give our little Smithy off, Smithy Mount Holyoke, Smithy, sister college stuffs. What year did you graduate?
2012.
You're such a wee lass.
I'm a baby. Although I don't feel like one. I feel old.
You know what? You're so skinny that I could totally rock you like a baby. You may be tall, but you're portable. Well,
I have very small feet, so I'm much like a frail tree. I just like fall over a lot.
Okay, so you're really willowy weeble.
Yes.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
Yeah, this weeble falls down.
Oh, this weeble falls down a lot. I graduated Mount Holyoke 1998.
You're still a babe.
Oh, I'm so squishy. My birthday's on Friday, and today is what, Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Today is Wednesday. That's my nursery school song. So what did you study when you were a Smithy? Did you intend to write? Are you an English major?
I double majored in English and art.
So you never slept?
I slept in the art studio.
Okay. All right. The reason why I say that, audience, is that English at either Smith or Mount Holyoke is not for the faint of heart. I remember when I was taking my intro classes, and there were like 15 books.
Did you take Chaucer?
I think I don't remember. I think Yeah, the Canterbury Tales. I think possibly. Um, I think Beowulf was in there. I also took African American Lit. Um, so the more English classes you take, the more volume of reading. And art and theater. I know more about theater than I know about art. Flip-flop in real life, but in academically, theater requires not only you take classes, but that you crew, that you backstage it. So when she told me she had a double major in art and English, I'm like, so you never slept.
Yeah, no.
I, on the other hand, was a lady of leisure. I'm so sad. My senior year, that Joan Cox, who was the chair of the politics department, created a new department called critical social thought, and that would have been my major if it existed. In its absence, I technically have a BA of political science, but if you look more closely at my transcript, it's really political theory. But for expediency on Facebook, I just said philosophy. Because the reason why it's politics and not history is because history, they ask you to be neutral, and in politics you can have an opinion. So I chose that.
I mean, we could get into that if you want to.
Dude, go for it. Take the ball.
The idea that history is apolitical and that historians are apolitical and that has not at all slanted our view of the past.
Oh, what about like smarmy AG saying history is basically written by the victors? I guess he won't be writing a memoir then. Cheers. I refuse to use Voldemort's name or any of his minions because he doesn't deserve any words from my mouth that include his branding, because branding is his game. And I'm like, I'm not going to support your brand, dude. You suck. So what I read, since it's on social media, it's not a secret. What I read was like that you were having like, okay, so here's one thing that, you know, when you read something and you know what the word means, but you've never heard it said out loud?
All the time.
Okay. So there are two of them that are key to my political science background, right? Mm-hmm. Paradigm, which reads paradigm.
Which we should pronounce that way.
I think so. And then what I read is ennui is ennui. I
learned how to pronounce that, I want to say like 4 months ago.
I really don't agree. I think ennui sounds a lot more sophisticated than ennui. It sounds like, what is that? It sounds like the little piglet with like the thing sticking out of his head going, ennui.
Versus ennui. Right, like you can drag it out. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll so I was writing. I'm gonna apply to MFA programs next year, and I was talking about one of the reasons why I needed to get formal education is because I'm a Gen Xer, and all this technology came out later. And I said, it's because I'm a Gen Xer, and I said not because of my ennui, my ennui, but there is that. It's because it was in its infancy when I was in college, and so I didn't get to really learn how to use those things. So back to the secret, not secret. You were having the feels about writing so many books, being a teacher, and I don't know, et al. ... You know, fill in the blank. If you want to talk about that, you can say like, I'm sorry, I'm not available. Do you know what the funniest thing I've said in regards to like when I don't know if it's on Facebook or Twitter, you're talking about Kraken or something, and I said I love the smell of Kraken in the morning, which is like a rip off of Agent Orange. You know, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Yeah.
No, yeah, I can talk about that. So let's see. Let's set the scene. It was the summer of 2020.
It was the summer of 32.
2020. Back in the year of the plague. Oh, and
wait, wet your palate. You're like,
oh yeah, I know. This is only my first cup of coffee, which is unusual. There will be more.
This is only my first cup of coffee, but that's because I went to get a back x-ray, not for anything serious, don't freak. I have like this part of my lower right back that I feel a little twinge at. And like when I would do the conferences and carry all the video film equipment and whatnot and go back and forth, or if I go dancing, which is like a lot of activity, then that gets more tender. But it's one of those nuisance things. It's not like injury. It's like annoying. The reason why I went to the chiropractor is because the ball joint down to my bicep is messed up, and I didn't injure it that I know of. Like there was no car accident, there was no fall, there was no lifting injury. I just suddenly had an issue. And I tried to make believe it would eventually go away. But, you know, after 8 months, my Scarlett O'Hara approach to medicine was not working. So I'm going to see a physical therapist next week. And yesterday was my first chiropractic appointment that I've ever had in my life. And it was amazing because, like, I have a hard time getting in and out of clothing and because that means bending this arm.
Right.
And I have a hard time reaching behind me. And the thing is, like, I feel zero pain. I'm pain neutral most of the time. And then I'll forget, because if you don't feel anything, and you don't feel anything when you raise your arms or whatever, then you're living your daily life, and then you do something that is wrong, and then I like squeal like a bitch. I go like, or like depending on how much I've tweaked myself. So I think it's like an irony injury that, you know, you don't know it's there, and then, you know, you're all relaxed, and then, you know. Did you buy that chair special because of because that's like a headrest and stuff?
This is, I think, the most expensive thing I own, actually.
I know, because it was looking kind of diamond tiara-y, and I wanted to ask you about that.
So I was I worked in agriculture after college and loved it, and I was.
What does that mean?
Well, I was working on on farms. I was farming with draft horses. My wife and I, who went to UMass.
She went to UMass?
She
Shut
did.
the front door.
Yeah, she was pre-vet there, and now she's a vet. But after college, we started a small sheep farm. Of
course you did, because that's what you do.
Yeah, that is what you do. I loved it. I still have some, fleeces in the closet. So but 2015, I was working on a farm in Maine, and I got kicked by a draft horse in the hip. So that was the end of my farming career. And it was also the end of pain-free existence. So my back is a wreck,
and you have got frail bones of a tiny woman. You're like a bird.
I'm like a bird. Yes. My grandmother, who I love, and who's been a little bit like my artistic patron, I think. Mm-hmm. She in my
like that new site that's so interesting.
Yes, I love it.
I think it's a great idea, but it's also kind of disturbing, because every time I read, of this, historical fiction or history where they're like, I'm looking for a patron.
And I'm like, yeah, it's I like it because I don't know, I like my patrons. Sometimes I will, I don't know, they get stories dedicated to them. Yeah, but that's its own little world. My grandmother bought me this very nice chair, and it has radically changed my life.
Did you marry it? Are you polygamous now?
Yeah, no, we're monogamous. The wife's an accessory. She's just,
the way you stroke it is just so intimate. So
it feels like a hug.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go back into Smoothing Mount Holyoke rivalry approximation, why don't you kind of let my, I don't know, watchers, listeners, soaker upper of stuffers, I don't know. So you've written fiction, mm-hmm. And was that 3 books?
4.
Stop showing off.
Sorry, I had to count.
Well, I mean, I have 6, but you did them 5. I'm working on 2 more. So, but you did them much faster than I did.
So to tie into your earlier question, my coping mechanism for the pandemic was to absolutely vanish into my fiction. So let's see. I decided to start working on a contemporary romance series because it was the perfect antidote to my MFA program, which I love. So I am just finishing up at Emerson's MFA program.
Emerson, Boston Emerson?
Mhm.
My father wanted me to go there.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's been a really overall positive experience. I've learned so much. I taught composition there prior to the pandemic.
It was one of my safety schools, actually. Did you know? And I'm not bitter, but I'm bitter. So the reason why I went to women's college at all, point blank, is that across the street from where I lived in Hoboken, there once was a smithy across the street. And if I knew how to write limericks, it would be super funny and entertaining, but I don't. And she must have been in her mid to late 20s, but I was in my early teens, so that seems utterly sophisticated. And she invited me over home to high tea, and she had this really cool teapot that was glass, and there's a candle beneath it, and she made those little cute little sandwiches, and I thought she was so rad and so smart. And so I thought I wanted to be a smithy. That was until I visited the campuses, and I am not afraid to say that I went for pretty, and I wanted to have the entire, I wanted to be on a true campus, whereas Smith is nestled in the bosom of Northampton. So I'm sad about being so far from Northampton, but not to brag, but I'm going to brag. Like, we've been Princeton Review's most beautiful campus like a gazillion times.
It is beautiful.
And that's why I went there, because I wanted, I went to school in an urban area, and the places where I had to wait for my bus were either dodgy, scary, or just cold and sterile and ugly urban. Not the cute, pretty, or, quirky urban, but oh, there's a drug dealer urban. What's so ironic about towns in the tri-state area, New York City and whatnot, is that the block that my high school was on was lovely. And the block that I'd walk down, like, let's say this is JFK Boulevard, if I'm going down that street, lovely. I go a block and a half. Oh, really? You're like, don't look at the drug dealers, don't pay attention to the thugs, you don't see the prostitutes. That wasn't like all the time, but you always had to kind of prepare yourself for something like that.
Yeah, true.
And so when I had to choose between Smith and Mount Holyoke, and also I went to preview weekend, which is where they try to entice you with prettiness, and I totally was a sucker. My roommate I met at preview weekend. And then there was the sad thing. I was waitlisted at Smith. I did not get in. So I ended up going to Mount Holyoke, which I'm really happy. I'm glad that I went there. Obviously I have all this, like, like when everything is wrong in the world, I visit, like, shortly after 9/11, I went there just to feel, it's almost like my body, recalibrates, as if like through the earth, I suck up all this calm and wonderfulness that is like the campus. And I think that's, where I was meant to be. I knew the second I stood, do you know, when I went to Wellesley's campus,
I like campus.
Beautiful. I got out. I was out of the car for about like 2.5 minutes, and I got this really weird feeling. I'm like, I don't think I'm applying here, Dad. And then, because like we went all over the place. We went to Bryn Mawr. Bryn Mawr was a contender.
You did the same thing we did, which was the tour of the women's colleges.
Yeah. So
we went there in the spring.
Oh, the outdoor arboretum, like, oh my God, that amphitheater. I
Mhm.
would have totally gone to Bryn Mawr. So like my safety school was co-ed. It was Penn State. I was glad I did that because I got a full ride, and so it gives you like the confidence that you're going to college, you know. And then I didn't get into Smith, but I got a grant and a scholarship to go to Mount Holyoke. So 10 grand a year
Very nice.
that you don't have to pay back, which is, amazing. But this is the interesting part, and I find fascinating. My dad met a woman from Mount Holyoke when he was a college student. He always wanted me to go there, but he never told me. Do you know when he told me?
When you graduated?
When I accepted.
Oh.
He did not want to influence my decision as to where I wanted to go. I really thought I was going to be going to Smith. I really did. And then I got in the campus, and there's some things that are just so stunning. And like the walk around, does your lake have names? Like we have Upper Lake and Lower Lake.
I think we just called it the pond.
Is
It
it
had
the pond?
a name, but I we never used it. It was just the pond where my friend got a staph infection.
Wow. And he, what was that name? I'm trying to think. You know where it's the name of of a bend in a river. I'm
Oh,
thinking.
what is that? What is
You
that?
know what I'm talking about,
I know
right? Where
exactly what you're
they're
talking
like, if
about.
you're on the top of Mount
Yeah.
Holyoke and you're looking at that, it's like a
Oh,
semicircle.
that's gonna bother me.
You see, you'll have to like, well, we'll put it in like the episode notes, but you know what I'm talking about.
I know
You know
exactly
what
what
I'm
you're talking
talking
about.
about.
Yep.
It's something bow or something. I can't think of
Yeah.
it. Okay, it'll torture you for the next 3 days, and
It
you
will.
go like, Eureka! This is what it's called.
Fine. Yeah.
Because what happens is that if it could potentially cut off whether it's like a river, a stream, whatever, because of the way it's diverting the
Oxbow?
water.
No.
What?
Oxbow?
I think so. I think that might be it. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, because we had one nearby as well. Because are Smith and Mount Holyoke on the same river?
Yep.
Yeah. So if I'd done crew, I could crew to Mount Holyoke.
What did you do? What sports did you do?
I did rugby for
You did rugby?
Mhm.
What were you?
I was a back. I was the jumper in the lineup. I loved it, and
How come you weren't like, I was an 8-man. How come you weren't in a tall person position?
I
Are you just really fast?
no, I'm not fast, or maybe yeah. So I only played for a semester. I loved it, and
I did 2 semesters. I joined the second semester of my first year, and then I joined like in the spring. Unfortunately, my position was the captain's position, so I was going to be putting in all that time, and when you're a college student, especially at a women's college, you don't have spare time. But I just decided to quit during the season because I wasn't getting put in. But obviously, she's the captain. It's her senior year. I was like, it's not worth the abuse that you take to prepare to be on a squad and whatnot. And I was going to miss it. But originally I thought I was going to be a swimmer because I was captain of my team in high school, and then I realized that, and this is totally vain. I was on a championship team in high school. I would have been average to below average as compared to the other women who were on the swim team. But to make it worse, and the real reason why I didn't join, other than it would have been exhausting. If we're not going to be winners, I don't have that time.
that's legitimate. Yeah, I rode.
Because I could totally ride the bench as long as like we were, the thing that Mount Holyoke excels at and it goes Olympian at is horse, at the equestrian team.
I wanted to be on the Mount Holyoke equestrian team.
Shut the front door, really?
Yeah, that was part of the appeal of the campus for me. I keep my horse girlness under wraps.
Why?
I don't know, because horse people are crazy. They're not. I love
Yeah.
them, but they're not.
You want to know what I decided my memoir is going to be titled?
What?
It's so appropriate that this really kills me, right? Okay, so as you can imagine, sometimes smart women are a little socially awkward. Can sometimes be weirdly attracted to things like, you know, quotes in Latin that you learned in Latin class, right?
You want to talk about your tattoos?
Oh, my tattoos.
That's what I thought.
No, unrelated tattoos with post-college. No, okay. So I'm not ashamed of them. You can see like my really cool commitment tattoo in my wedding photographs. And I put some pictures of some of my other tattoos, and some will only be seen by Ilya because they're in private places. What was I talking? Okay. So I don't know if I remember the Latin completely, but it was something like non magnum dementiae fuit, which basically means there's no great talent without an element of madness, which is a Seneca quote. And that was my high school quote because that's how I rolled. And, you know, I find it extremely ironic because I just, you know, naively chose it in high school because I liked it. And I thought that, you know, I'm a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And then things happened in my life, which will be mysterious, and you'll have to buy my memoir. But the title of my memoir is going to be There's No Great Talent Without an Element of Madness.
Which is, I believe, that seems to be consistently true.
Right? And it's snappy, you know, it's the kind of book that like, even if I don't get fame off of it, I could probably convince like Mount Holyoke or Smith to possibly teach it. So I don't need to make money, but you know, one of my unrealized dreams was to be a professor and to be on a lecture circuit. But the unrealized part comes when in 2000, I was diagnosed as bipolar. And so all of the things that made me exceptional makes me sick now. So I have to, like, I'm on permanent disability. It's not, you know, it's been over 20 years. I looked back a little further and I can see the hallmarks of when it was starting to, it's almost like a chick trying to hatch the egg. Like I can see the little fractures that brought that around. And I used to be ashamed of it. And I think one of the things was I was insanely precocious. Like the first fight I won with my father, and I was 2.5, mind you. This was my argument. It was like a syllogism, right? I said, women live longer than men because men start wars.
How, a 2-year-old who knew about war?
I was raised by hippies.
Okay.
Just to like when I went to school for gifted and talented, which I would never recommend, I went for like 5th to 8th grade. My grade school experience was more academically challenging than my high school one, which was annoying. The high school one, I was so sick of people just wasting my time and wasting the teacher's time. But I, like in the gifted and talented student, I was not the slacker, but I was at the bottom of the heap because there were so many talented people. But it gave me an amazing foundation. I had 3 years of philosophy, logic, ethics, and aesthetics. I had 2 years of Latin, 4 years of Spanish. And
what textbook did you use?
What
Latin textbook did you use?
That's asking a lot of me. I'm 44. Like I took 2 years of Latin in grade school and 1 year in high school. And we were reading things like the world, like Chinua Achebe's, you know, world falls apart, things fall apart, you know. We were reading The Scarlet Letter, Lord of the Flies, all this kind of stuff that you usually encounter in high school. But what actually was really helpful is when I went to Mount Holyoke and I took classes that involved philosophy, I had a very broad base of understanding. And so other students used to kind of come to me for help or just look up to me. And so what was difficult was like, imagine your entire life, you're this like shooting star of potential, you know, and you believe without a doubt that when you graduate from college, you're going to be something truly exceptional, you know, and then you graduate from college and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And so I met my first girlfriend about a month before I finished Mount Holyoke, and we moved in together afterwards. And my first job actually was in Northampton at a bookstore that doesn't exist anymore called Beyond Words. And that was my first job out of Mount Holyoke. And I'm not going to go into some of the other darker stuff, but just the reason why the memoir is called that is because I think a lot of artists are, it's not a trope to say that like we're tortured souls, you know, and that people who are funny, like a lot of comedians have emotional disorders too. And, you know, I can't remember it. Oh, this was from an Indigo Girls live album. You have to laugh, otherwise you cry your eyes out, you know? So I think that the reason why my memoir is going to be named that is because without, it's not that the madness is a prereq. It just seems like a lot of us writers have something going on, whether it's clinical like mine, where, you know, I see a psychiatrist and a therapist on a regular basis, you know, that my little pill case, you know, holds my meds. But, you know, one of the things that I'm grateful for, and I want to say shout out to scientists, is that they figured out how to correct my brain chemistry without medicating my personality, which is the way the medication used to be.
Yeah.
So Depakote, when I was, what was one of the more common medications at the time, and the way that I describe it is like suspended animation. You can't feel good, you can't feel bad. You're just, and I hated it, so I stopped taking it. But the stuff I take now, I feel like myself.
Pharmaceuticals are incredible. They're incredible.
I just, you know, I mean, I know that there's a lot of avarice involved in drug companies, but they've done some very useful things.
Yeah.
So I'll give a shout out to that. So like I used to keep the fact that I was bipolar secret, even with GCLS. And I won't tell you who, because whenever I say anything negative, I never give the person a name, because I don't roll that way. But somebody who I looked up to, like really, really, really looked up to, that I work with very in depth with, and found out that what I was, you know, when I was explaining why, you know, I was having a difficulty at one point, suddenly decided that I was this out of control, unmedicated, mentally damaged person. And I was so heartbroken, because imagine, like, you know, one of your heroes, let's say, okay, there's some heroes that would never do anything. Like, you know, one of my heroes that would never say a mean word to anyone ever in the universe is Lee Lynch. She is so kind. She couldn't say something mean ever, because she's just wonderful. But imagine that you look up to somebody and you're like, this
Like
person's so
who all of us, yeah, who betrayed us all.
You betrayed us. You betrayer. So it broke my heart, because I'm like, I worked with you for years, and you've always admired my intelligence, and we think very similarly. But now you knew the thing that you didn't know before, and suddenly I'm like this thing that can't be counted on. Like I'm this, you know, loose cannon. I'm like, dude, I've been this the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like being gay. You're like, you didn't know what I was.
Yeah.
And now that you do, what, suddenly, you know, I'm some kind of, well, whatever, you know what I mean? So that's the heartbreak, is that, you know, when somebody finds out, you know, just like, that fucking sucks, because I thought I could count on you. She's a professor, you know, hugely influential, just, you know, brains, you know, galore. And then all of a sudden I'm a non-person because I'm bipolar.
but good for you for talking about it, because the only way that things change is if we're open about mental illness. And I've seen that. Let's see. I'm a millennial. I'm trying to remember like the time cutoffs, you know, whatever, these generational generalizations. We are more open, but even, you know, it's still, there's so much that has to change regarding mental illness. And the only way that, you know, just like with being gay, right, like the best way to change someone's mind isn't to, you know, shout over the internet. It's to, you know, have these face-to-face conversations.
Yeah, and
They're hard.
but I think I needed to, like, I was bullied and not I didn't have a lot of friends when I was growing up, but in GCLS almost everyone is my friend.
Mhm.
And I believe that I have proven myself, you know, even though I no longer am working for GCLS, I did for many, many years. I was the admin on the Writing Academy when it started. And then, you know, passed the baton to some other people. A lot of my work was related to, you know, the GCLS Video Library. That was my baby. I had the author salon where I interviewed guests, and I also did other kinds of video interviews while I was there. And I felt like I was in the closet about being bipolar. My friends, many of my friends, excuse me, knew, but most didn't. And I think the important thing about this memoir is going to be is to explore things that were painful to me. For example, I attempted suicide at 23 because I felt like I was given all these, you know, I was given every advantage in life that you could have ever wanted. I had private tutors for my dyslexia. I had a very supportive family. I went to an excellent college. I performed really well. People admired me. And then when college ended and I had a nervous breakdown, it wasn't related to the college. My college didn't break me. It was something else, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't want the people who made me feel bad to feel bad. Because that's in the past, you know, like that's another decision I've made about my memoir. Not that it's going to be all sunshine, unicorns, champagne, and giggles, but I'm not going to make anybody unhappy, because let's say this is a successful thing that will put a microscope on them that they don't deserve. And so I'm doing what I learned from my friends who are go-go dancers. So you got to keep it cute. Got to keep it cute, which means that, you know, you have to restrain yourself when you would like to go, you know. And that's the other reason I don't do flame, for two reasons. One, I'm too soft. I'm too thin-skinned to have somebody speak about my work that way. I would never do that to somebody else, regardless. I don't flame because my brand is who I am as a person, who I think I'm, you know, very kind and compassionate and empathic. And so that's important to me. So I may inside have all shady kind of thoughts, and I may say to my friends these shady thoughts, but I will never put those shady thoughts out into the world. And if I have something negative to say about a book or a writer, I will never refer to them or use any signifiers that would allow somebody to figure out whom I was speaking about, because that's mean. Like, I've had bad reviews, I've had nasty reviews, and like people who obviously did not read my book before they wrote those things. That's painful. And I would never want for somebody to, I don't want to make anybody feel that way, you know. And like, I've had some successes, but you know, some of my shortfalls, you know, really do come around. Like it's not a mixed metaphor, you know, if we're talking about, I guess, the same pantheon of mythology. So the sword of Damocles, which is the debt that I incur when I'm manic, that sword is going to have to be retired because I am 1,500 away from not having any debt, which is kind of amazing. No student loans, no credit card debt, nothing. But I worked my ass off to make that happen, by the way. And the rising and dying god, you know, whether you're gonna like Persephone it or you're thinking about Jesus, you know, like what, you know, whatever, that kind of thing. When you're bipolar, you're constantly having to reinvent yourself. And as you get older, it's more and more tedious to rebuild yourself and reinvent yourself. So I'm glad that I'm resilient. I'm resilient because I have no choice. Yeah, but I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Wouldn't wish it on anybody at all. But people have to know. And I have to say that I have several good friends who are bipolar like I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people need to understand that I'm a person. I have feelings. You can hurt them. You know, you can really hurt my feelings. And to dismiss me as a human being entirely because I have this word that describes a chronic illness is so entirely unfair. And so, and when I created the Finding Home series with Sheila, we wanted to help kids feel less alone, because the theme is a group home for kids with magical abilities. So I want this memoir to be for people who have like mental illness, who are on the autism spectrum, who are dyslexic like I am, to see that, yeah, we don't quite, it's like from science, like the phenotype versus the genotype, you know, your potential and what's actually seen. And I have intentionally pulled back so that people would not know that I have all these different things going on, because I just want them to see me as me. So that's tough, you know, but at the same time, it's kind of like coming out to people as gay. They're like, I didn't know you were gay. Or they say, I don't know any gay people. And I feel like, yeah, you do. We just don't let you know. And there's a reason. Because like I live in a really paradoxical county, in that it seems it seems very liberal,
Mm-hmm.
but there was the proliferation of like Trump paraphernalia, propaganda on cars, on houses, on flags. There was even, you know, those like really cheesy, almost falling apart tents that have that they're selling different stuff, you know, like flags and t-shirts and streamers and all that kind of stuff, and everywhere. And one of the more bizarre moments I had when I was at one of my jobs was this guy, older guy, was starting to tell a joke, and I was grimacing for a reason, but he didn't understand what it was. He thought I was, this is earlier in Trump's presidency. Oh, I said the wrong word. Anyway, so he thought I was upset because he was saying bad things about the president. This is in the first few months of his presidency, before he did anything. Well, he realized his potential, but that was just a really sad thing to happen to the world. But he actually thought that I was upset because of that. And like when you go to the dealership, or you go to a doctor's store and they have a television on, it's on Fox News. And one other thing that, you know, just, you know, kind of cured me of coming out at the dog part was because people would, you know, really like me and my sweet boxer, and, you know, we'd get along and talk, and then I'd talk about my work, and then inevitably pronouns happen. And suddenly they realize that they're talking to a gay person, and it's like they retract, but not visibly, but you can feel like the energy that was warm and wonderful just like gotten, so they want to seem like they aren't awful. That was like a really appropriate ding. I don't even know what it was from. It's
Sorry,
probably like,
it was my computer screen.
yeah, I'm putting my one of my things on theater mode. Hopefully that won't.
I don't.
But yeah,
my computer stopped doing that. I should, but I don't.
it's fine. So that's my spiel. That's the reason why I was in the closet, and I lost one of my interviews with Rachel Gold, which makes me sad. But at least I got the academic one up, which I thought was really fascinating. And that I quit my job because I no longer needed one because I paid off all my debts, right? And also, like, I have a spouse that, you know, supports me, and my parents own the house we live in, and so we're a nice multi-generational home. But what I didn't know was hurting me was stealthing, was seeming straight.
Oh.
You know, I worked at, the funny thing is that the two places that I worked are wonderful people. Okay. So Tom's River Fitness, I was a swim instructor, and I still teach, pardon me, aqua yoga there. The owner, Shelly, is fantastic. She's such a warm and loving person. And, you know, Francine DeMola, who was in charge of, like, she always looked after people, and she's very, very caring. And then I worked at the place that I was working at last was Huntington, and nobody ever made me feel like I had to be in the closet. But what I learned is that when you work with children, people, whether they be, you know, the parents of the kids that you're teaching or some of your coworkers, it's just easier to just, I don't talk about anything about my personal life.
Yeah.
I only keep things completely professional. I can be social. I can talk to people about their lives. I do not share anything about my life. And that's intentional. But I didn't realize how painful it was until I stopped working, and I realized how much repressed pain I had. And the thing is, if somebody asked me point blank, Liz, you're a lesbian, I'd go, yeah. You know, and when Ilya and I were in public, I'm very physical. You know, I grope her and stuff like that in public. So it's not like I would drop her hand or anything like that. So I felt like it was a very neutral way of being closeted, and it didn't hit me until I had some good cries about it, that it was really destructive. And I haven't lost a lot of weight. I've, like, transitioned fat back to muscle. So I actually gained weight, but all my clothes are fitting loosely. And it's a symptom of, I didn't realize how much the repression was making me shrink, become more flat, dowdy,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing. And now I'm just like, now that I paid off my debts, and and Ilya's letting me write full time, I feel like going, like, freak flag has been recovered. Gay, 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 homosexual, homosexual, lesbian, lesbian. You know, like, I'm done with being in the closet. And I didn't realize it hurt so much, to be honest. I thought it was just neutral. I don't talk about my life, but it's not.
No, it's not. Sorry about the train.
That was awesome, though. I love your sound effects. I feel like they're like transitional tones, like, oh, let's transition. So now that I have shared all that with you, it just surprised me. I didn't know that that was going to be hurtful to me, but it was.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you and I have something in common, is that,
Our luscious hair.
yes, you like it, I cut it.
It does look beautiful. I was admiring. Mine is, well, kind of a mess. So.
Oh my God, that was so amazing. That's like nerd librarian hot, what you're doing right now.
But look at it. It's just like a
stuffs. Now my hair was, she cut off about 5 inches, because, like, I was telling Patty's, like, my childhood friend, and I was like, I don't understand why my hair looks like I box colored it, and I haven't spent the time to touch it up. And she explained to me that the darker hair is older, and because it was very long, and so it's just, you know, from exposure to light over time. And so I said, like, I was like, you know, because I have a lot of silver going on, I was like, I just want it to be healthy and shiny. I don't care. Like, she colored my hair. I thought I wanted to do that because my hair was changing, and then I realized I hated it, not because she did a bad job, but because I realized I'd rather have shiny salt and pepper hair than dull brown hair. So I'm really happy about this. We have some really cool highlights.
Mhm.
My best friend Frankie and I are having a tea party on Saturday for my birthday,
Wonderful.
and I gave him this really fun moniker because he looks so masculine, you know, like really really masculine, but he's very very campy when he speaks. So like I gave him this really long moniker, and he said if I ever go on Tinder again, I'm going to use that as my description, and he did, and apparently a lot of guys liked it, and so he's so it's so okay. So this was the long moniker: swarthy, swishy, mountain man, pirate.
Yeah, that would be effective.
You know, so funny. I was talking to Lene the other day, and I said, you know, I can't do this for my own writing, but I am bitching at making elevator speeches or by like encapsulating something in a very few words. But whenever I try to do it myself, I'm like Gollum. You know, I have to write I have to write the back copy, but I hates it. I hates it.
Is it precious? No, blurbs are so. I know. I need to. Do I need to do one? I feel like I need to do one. I feel like I've been putting it off. I have several times convinced my publisher I will send Salem like vomit and she makes it look pretty. And she's done that for me. I think it's been twice. And I haven't pointed it out to her because I want her to keep doing it. But like that's
I have a
definitely my
secret to
responsibility.
tell you. You just told her
Well, yeah,
because she's gonna watch this.
but yes. So I really appreciate that I think it was I was really I didn't know how to do it for my contemporary romances. So she is basically fixed what I've sent her. But I do blurbing's an important skill and we all need to learn how to do it better.
You know what's interesting is that I haven't written since I worked at Huntington,
Mhm.
not for any particular reason other than I just haven't felt like it. But because I'm teaching standardized testing, you know, I teach the punctuation and basic grammar things.
Yeah.
And since I've been teaching it for 3 years, I realized that I edit my stuff less. And I'm talking about posts and emails,
Oh, yeah.
that I'm just naturally much better at not making mistakes when I used to make lots of mistakes because it was hard for me to learn how to read and write
Mhm.
because I was severely dyslexic. So now when I write something, it's very tight. So now I'm interested in seeing how my memoir, and I have another fiction book, Sangre Speakeasy, and it's with vampires, and the speakeasies are created in response to the global shutdowns
Interesting.
because the vampires need a safe place to find people to feed from,
Mhm.
and there's no way to lurk or, you know, to meet people or to be in some place that can be ambiguous, like seem one thing and another. So in New York City, they revive all these speakeasies that were created during Prohibition as a place for, you know, vampires not only to feed but to congregate, and other magical beings are there, like, you know, the fae, with their nice pointy ears and pointy canines.
Which means
um,
the canines behind a mask.
yeah, well, masking wasn't common, at least in that, like at the start of the book. So it's called the Sangre Speakeasy for that reason. So I think it's a really jazzy way to approach something that's a very painful thing, because like I'm a problem solver, like the whole bipolar resilience thing. And I was like, oh, so my proprietor, who's had kind of front op, back op, as in like this is what the public, the part of the building the public goes to for, you know, beers and whatnot, and then in like some back rooms, not in shady sex club like way, but back rooms where, you know, people can either offer themselves up or feed, whatever, and just expanding that as a business model during the pandemic, you know, just during that time period. And also that it would go global. It would be in New York City. It would be in other, it would be like Amsterdam and Paris, two of my favorite places to visit. Um, where the speakeasies would, you know, like the Cadence is the main character. So Cadence would teach other proprietors how to set up these speakeasies and not be discovered. Because one of the things that is very common in history is when there is disease or famine, the people who are other are often targeted and killed. So the only way to avoid detection are these speakeasies, even though it starts out for the vampires, other magical beings start to go to these places because when there is no ambient life, like New York is usually this like thriving, writhing thing. In the absence of that, other becomes really apparent. And when people are stuck in their homes, they notice unusual things that they would not have noticed. So that's the tension that exists. And it'll be a series, you know, starting out, it starts out in the fall of 2019 when a character from one of my other series, Scarlet, she and her bestie, her pocket gay, is he's a prophet. He sees not a prophet, and he sees prophecies and whatnot. And so she learns that this thing is coming, and then she sneaks into Cadence's bedroom because she's in her profession is a spy and assassin. So she just does it to make Cadence squirm. So she climbs into her bed. You know, you could have come through the front door. And it's like, what's the fun in that?
Right.
And so Scarlet explains to Cadence that what's coming, and she says, but we're going to have a Cassandra issue. Cassandra is a character in Greek mythology where she was given the ability to see the future, but not able, like nobody would believe anything that she said. So the Cassandra problem is nobody is going to believe that that this thing is coming. Nobody's going to believe that it's going to be this bad. Nobody's going to believe that things, but we're giving the supernatural community, because Scarlet's a fire witch and a demon, like half fire witch, half demon. And she's like, we're giving everybody a heads up so that they could prepare because of the risk that's going to be inherent in what was going to happen in 2020. So that's how I put the pandemic in without the willies.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really interested to see how people begin to address this through fiction, through nonfiction. I haven't thought about if I'm going to, well, I have thought about it, but it's writing about these.
It wasn't on purpose, by the way. This wasn't a plan. Patty Henderson is invited me to write a short story for a vampire anthology, and I've always avoided shapeshifters and vampires because they're I feel to do them well that you need to know anatomy and physiology really well, because there's a lot of what makes for really strong descriptions is a full understanding. It's kind of like when it comes to swordplay. My favorite book series is the Kate Daniels series. The first word of every one of those books is magic, slays, kills, triumphs, whatever. And she lives in post-apocalyptic Atlanta, and there keeps on being a shift in tech or magic. So instead, magic is up, things that are technological don't work. Mm-hmm. When tech is up, vice versa. And the reason why she carries a sword is because it works regardless of tech or magic. And one of the things I find fascinating about her swordplay, which I'm going to ask you about your books because I haven't read them, I know I'm a bad person, is that she talks about she sliced this one thing, which means that they're not going to have the use of their hands because she's taken away, that nerve or tendon or whatever, or slices this way and then their arm is useless. So what I find phenomenal about that series is how it's not only the swordplay, it's not only how it's done, it's how exquisitely detailed it's done. And if I can't do it like that, I was like, I don't want to do vampires. And then I was invited to be in this anthology, which, I have to give her my short story by the end of the month. But I was inspired. I went from, I'm not going to write vampires, or I can't write vampires, to, I'm gonna write a vampire series. Because I was like, Liz, don't puss out. Give yourself a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Nobody's gonna say anything, you know. Or if they do, they don't. It doesn't matter, because the people that you really like don't say things. So you have pirates, like, and Nottingham, isn't that kind of like a play on the Sherwood Forest, you know, Robin Hood kind of thing? So why don't you kind of talk a little bit about the books you have in print?
That's a broad. So I've written three.
Yeah, I just want to give you something really broad, so it's awkward and hard to manipulate.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
I'm a giver.
Well, I can tie into, you know, my favorite aspect of writing. Well, it's hard to choose. I really enjoy research. So when I was working on Nottingham, for instance, I was also working part-time. This is the beginning of my MFA program at the Worcester Art Museum, and that had recently absorbed a
Worcester, the one in Worcester.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
that's mid-state for non-Massachusetts people.
yeah, so they'd absorbed, and it doesn't matter. They had absorbed an armory. So the museum had this like fabulous collection of, you know, armor from all over the world, and also this like wealth of, you know, the museum staff. So I went with, pre-pandemic, the man who ran the program, and, you know, we met up at a local park, and he was part of this, you know, like,
so if I play with my hair, it's going to make you play with your hair. It's kind of like
I always
okay.
Yeah,
It's kind of like if you see somebody yawn, you can't like help but yawn.
no, it goes up, it goes down. It's a tick. So I, you know, got to have my hands on all these like really interesting weapons, and so like that hands-on research was essential for Nottingham.
Mm-hmm.
For Compass
Thorn.
For Thorn, Thorn is a wintry retelling of Beauty and the Beast, a loose retelling. And I was living in the Caribbean at the time, and I was really tired of being hot. So just me channeling my cold upstate New York upbringing. So that required, I watched a lot of polar bear videos for that. But for Compass Rose, you know, there was just like, I love the extensive climate research, and the pirate aspect was a little bit less, I don't know, you can't write about the ocean and not have pirates, I just felt. So, you know, post-apocalyptic pirates and interesting technology, and I would just like lurk on these, you know, scientific news sites and just see what was happening, and then I would take that and put it into.
So am I correct in recollecting, and I may be wrong because my memory's shot, am I correct, and were you a part of the Writing Academy?
And I am.
Tell me about it, woman.
Well, I will be January 1st. I am going to.
You are drinking out of a jar. Is that whiskey in a jar?
Moonshine.
Of course it's moonshine.
Moonshine. No, it's water.
What else could it be? I mean, really. You're in the woods. You probably have a still that you don't want anybody to know about.
Yes. I will be the director of the academy beginning January 1st. So.
You stud muffin.
I know. I do what I can. So Finn is transitioning to manager. She'll still be a part of it, and I will be director, which I'm very excited about and honored to be able to give back.
How did you find out about the Writing Academy, about GCLS at all?
I was living in the Caribbean, and I was thinking about, I wanted to get more involved just in my writing, the literary community in general, and I Googled Lesbian Literary Society, and GCLS was the only one that popped up. So.
Ha! And I like, I never know how I'm perceived, but I attacked you when I found out you were a Smithy. Was Corelia there too? Was Corelia at that con?
She was not. I love Cornelia. I've never met
I
her.
love
Yeah.
her. Cornelia Stetz-Waters. She's been a professor for GCLS. She also has a lot of other snappy titles, and she's a phenomenal. Oh, this is a baby. What's your baby's name?
Faith. She's named for the Buffy character.
Oh,
17.
hello. So cute. So, okay. So what's one, because just to close things out, what's one thing, or more than one thing, you could have a bulleted list. What's one way that Smith changed you as a woman and has changed how you see yourself in terms of scholarship, success, risk, risking things to reach a pinnacle of height?
Well, growing up, it's still services, but I had a terrible stutter, and I, was not outspoken. I was quite shy when I wasn't around like friends or family, obviously. But when I went to Smith, I really feel like I became myself. I was able to, I don't know, it just like it instilled this feeling of possibility and competence and power. I found my voice. I discovered who I was to a certain extent, and I was surrounded by people who were equally passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it made me. It was, I'm sure all colleges to a certain extent, but when you're in a women's college, we always talk about the bubble, right? Like you leave the Smith bubble and you're out in the real world again, and it's different. But being in a place where it was not only, acceptable to be queer, but it was the norm.
Yeah.
That for me really, it was I had no idea how good it felt to be, I use the word normal, and of course there's quotations around that, right? But it felt so good to just like feel like I was okay, like it was okay and it was right and natural to be me, and I've carried that with me. And I think that's the thing that I appreciated most about my college experience, was that is how I expect to be treated now. It is not always how I am treated, of course, but that I keep that inside, right? Like that's what I want the world to one day be, is a place where, you can just be you, right? Like whoever that is,
Mm-hmm.
as you're kind.
Like when I was at the Hudson School, I felt inadequate because everybody else was so smart and so talented, and it showed. And I knew that I had all this inside of me, but it did not show up in the same way in terms of tangibles or deliverables. Then I went to St. Dominic Academy, which had the gamut, from people, girls who were sent there because their parents wanted to, um, they were misbehaving and they wanted their daughters to kind of become, what is that called? Straighten out and fly, right? That kind of thing, and most of them got expelled by the end of the first year. But there was even though it was a single sex institution, there were a lot of people who wasted time or weren't invested. Whenever there were group projects, I would just take over, not in an aggressive way, but I didn't want them to fuck up my GPA. And then I went to Mount Holyoke, and it was like nirvana, because I'm like, everybody does the reading, everybody's prepared, everybody's excited, everybody's really smart. And it was just like, it created, and the bubble is a safe space, but at the same time, I can't tell you, and maybe you can understand this, I really miss late night, all night long intellectual conversations. I miss intellectual conversations point blank, because what's weird, and I don't know if it's paradoxical, but I'll just say it is, or Alanis irony. What's weird is I have a lot of really smart friends, but we don't talk about those things, which is just weird. Do you understand what it's like? Like all my friends are really, really smart, but we never have those kinds of discussions.
Well, and you almost have to, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to structure those discussions. Like you have to actively try to have them when you're not in an academic setting. Well, I mean, I'm sure there are some people who this isn't true of, but like when my wife and I, will occasionally turn to each other and we'll realize that we haven't really had like a meaningful discussion in a while. And so, it's awkward at first, right? But then you just like, you're like, okay, well, let's do it. Let's think about something to talk about. And it's, but without the structure of the academy. Now, granted, I am enmeshed in the academy now, and I suspect I will be indefinitely. So but that's why I wanted to go back to grad school partially.
What are you studying in grad school?
I'm getting my MFA so that I can teach creative writing.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Will you teach me? Will you help me grow up and be a real kid? When I grow up, I want to be a real author.
Yeah.
Only if you're good, honest, and true. Like Pinocchio.
Yeah, this is no, I hear you though, and it's hard to find people who are like you in that sense, and sometimes that can be a good thing, right? Because it's good to be surrounded by all kinds of different people. But
well, the thing is that it's not an ivory tower sitch here,
right.
Because most of my friends in my late teens and 20s.
Unknown caller.
Unknown caller. No,
No.
you're naughty. Hold on. I put theater mode on, but I did not put on do not disturb mode. I apologize, everybody. That was rude. A lot of my friends, everything that you can do for a club. So bouncers, go-go dancers, bartenders, barbacks, cocktail servers, and then, management and whatnot. And they were all, and I think it's part of it is being in New York City, like at Henrietta's, I actually briefly worked there. Esquilita, I briefly worked there. And there are plenty of people who had no formal education at all. But these were really smart, resilient, amazing people. And maybe some nights, like when we're in somebody's apartment and we're drinking and just like chilling, we will have those kind of conversations. But one of the things I find strange but true is that I always surround myself with interesting, talented, smart people. But for whatever reason, we don't really do the deep thoughts kind of stuff very often.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get deep. it's right, like
yeah, it's like when I was interviewing Rachel, I was having a little party because she was not the keynote. What's underneath the keynote?
Oh, I thought she was the keynote. The master panel presenter.
No, it was but she wasn't the keynote, but she was like, how there's one day in the conference, there's a speech and then there's the keynote. So she did that speech and it was on, non-binary history, world history. It was so jazzy. I loved it. And, what I felt, and I cried a lot during it because people have no reason why like silent tears are like streaming down my face, is because I missed it so much. I miss Mount Holyoke. Not because it's a women's college, but I miss those discussions because we used to have, I was called a wordsmith mostly because I would include in my regular conversation language that I would be reading. And since I was reading a lot of political philosophy, I'd be using a lot of language that's not normally used in everyday life. But because you're in that immersion, my friend just came to, notice that about me. And I have on occasion bumped into people that I've gone to school with and stuff like that. And yes, I've had, interesting conversations and intellectual conversations with my friends. But one of the reasons I just don't understand why all these interesting, amazing people that we very rarely talk about anything beyond the surface, which is just so strange that I have no explanation for that.
I have also pondered this, and I do not have an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's too bad.
Yeah, it is. And what can you do? You know, that's why one of the reasons why I stopped doing the Liz McMullen show, because I was burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
I was burnt out from reading so much, and I realized that the way that I was reading was no longer fun for me. And then everything that I was reading casually was not fun for me, because I would notice things that either I would bring up in conversation or finding, weaknesses in editorial stuff, whatever. And so I just quit doing that, and I did the writing thing, which I did. And now I'm rebooting the Liz McMullen show, but as the Convo Cafe, where it's kind of like a coffee clutch. And
Right.
I am intentionally curating the discussions so that they are discussions that are what I'm missing. So even though they are my friends and they are writers, the reason why I'm doing this, my raison d'etre, if you will. You have no language, you just have a silly accent. I don't know. That's Holy Grail stuff. Monty Python. Because I want to have these conversations, and we have to do it on purpose. Just like you said, you have to do it on purpose. So if I was to say anything to anyone, and Mount Holyoke's admissions policy has changed. So pretty much everybody except somebody who's cisgendered and sees themselves as a man cannot be at Mount Holyoke. But if you are trans in any way, if you are non-binary, if you are one of the myriad of many different ways people describe themselves, you can apply to Mount Holyoke. It's just straight men can't, which I thought was a really progressive and interesting choice, because there was a lot of tension when I was at Mount Holyoke. There's a lot of tension in that we're not going to go co-ed just because it's hard to be competitive when you're only allowing women to be, and some colleges did co-ed, and now they became cousin schools, and now there's there's a myriad of political things that I'm just going to bite my tongue, because I almost started walking that direction, and I'm going to stop it because it's not helpful. But I think it's a great place to go. I think it's a great place to, at the time when I went to Mount Holyoke, our dorms had cafeterias in the bottom. So you just walk down in your PJs and have breakfast. And I remember no matter what meal, you could get sucked into a vortex of conversation for anywhere between 1 and 3 hours. So when I had studying to do, I would go to Tailgate, which was across the street, and I would get myself some snackies and whatnot and hide out in a carrel in the library. Because what I would do is I'd hustle, from morning until evening. I would hustle, and then I change into my club gear, go dancing or go to parties or whatever. But the only way I could justify that is by accomplishing all my work. And then when I'm done with my work, then I can be a wild woman.
Right.
Because obviously, wild and crazy girl right here. So I want to thank you for my Smithy Mount Holyoke time together.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, you're pretty great. I like you.
I feel the same way about you. Are you on the East Coast?
I am 4 blocks from the ocean.
Okay. Are you about to get this giant nor'easter?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
I don't know. They always,
Well, when you're by the ocean, we don't get snow in the same way that people who are by a river or a bay or, that kind of thing, because the salinity, of course this because you're a pirate, but I live on a barrier island. Behind me is the bay, in front of me is the ocean, and snow generally is not common here. Not that we haven't had really big snowstorms, but most of them occur north and west of here.
Right.
So be safe. So the nor'easter might come and bite you in the hiney, you and your wife.
Apparently. I'm supposed to.
Are you provisions? Do you have the preserves and you have fresh honey?
What is it? The beer and the bread, what people get at the store, and the milk.
Do you have mead?
We don't have mead, tragically.
Ah,
Yeah.
I will send you some like mulled wine at some point.
I do. I love mulling wine. It's one of my favorite things to do.
So thank you for your time.
Having me. This was a lovely start to a Wednesday.
Yes, exactly. And what religious things do you celebrate? Yule? Are you
We reluctantly celebrate Christmas.
okay?
But like,
we're a Christmas household, but like Yule is also there,
yeah.
And like the yeah. So that's the traditions that we work from. And my birthday's on Friday. I'm turning 44.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Next year is going to be cooler though, because Illy and I are 10 years and 10 years and 10 months apart. So I'm born in December of 76, and she's born in January of 66. So next year she'll be 55 and I'll be 45, which is pretty jazzy. So like I don't care about aging in terms of aging. I just want to be a cool age. Like, like 45 is cool, 50 is cool. Like not the in-between ones,
And like that this year I'm turning 31. Like
yeah, like you're like I've turned into an emoji in the past year. This is my like, yes, that's my little emoji. So I will see you online. Beware of the NUE.
And I will send you the recorded file.
You are the bestest. Okay, bye, sweetie.
Bye.